guys, this is Kaylin. In this video, I want to show you step by step of how to build a beautiful and functional floating vanity for your bathroom. This vanity features 3 drawers to provide easy access of things, and also tip-out trays on the top for additional storage such as toothpaste and other knickknacks. As always, you can customize the size or opt for doors instead of drawers if that's something you prefer. There are build plans and written instructions linked in the description in case you're interested in building one for yourself. I'll link all the tools and materials I use for this project because when I watch other people's video, I always want to know exactly what they've used. But you don't have to have everything to make this project successful. Use what you have and invest in tools that you'll be able to use it again in the future. Sounds good? Let's get started. Here's a 3D render of what I'm building. It has 2 floating vanity cabinets for the sinks, which is 35 inches wide each, and a smaller drawer in between that I will use as a makeup vanity and sit under that. This vanity is only 18-inch deep compared to a 20-inch deep standard vanity due to the space considerations. In addition to that, I'm choosing a shallower depth because I often find it hard to look into the mirror when the vanities are too deep. It has 3 drawers in total and 2 tip-out trays to maximize the storage. For this project, I'm mostly using 1/4-inch plywood. I prefer to buy high-quality plywood, which is smooth to touch and with low VOCs. To make it easier to haul it back home, I asked a sales assistant to do a cross-cut for me. I applied painter's tape to the cut beforehand, so the cut edge is smooth and with no wood splinters. To start, I ripped the plywood to size with my table saw and use a miter saw to do a cross-cut for any skinnier boards. Because I'm building 3 cabinets and joining them together, there are quite a few pieces here, so it is a good idea to mark them. Then for the cabinet pieces that will be exposed after the installation, I applied wood veneer to hide the plywood rough edges. Make sure to buy a high quality one. I could not find the one I like to use in the hardware store, but I didn't want to wait for shipping, so I just grabbed what they had and I really regretted it. I use an iron to apply it on, and after the glue on the back has dried, I use a device specifically to trim the wood veneer. It makes my life easier and save time. Then I gave it a light sand on the edges. If you forget to apply wood veneer on some parts like me, you can still apply it to the plywood after building the cabinet using a utility knife to trim it. Next, moving on to building the cabinet. I created pocket holes for attaching the cabinet pieces together. I prefer to create the holes on the bottom pieces so it is hidden, even if I'm too lazy to patch it afterwards. Because the cabinet is relatively wide, now I'm just using what I have on hand to hold it together since I don't have multiples of the same set of tools. I've used a miter corner clamp, which is generally used for making picture frames, and I'm also using this handy pocket hole clamp. Longer bar clamps also comes in handy here. I want the joints to be tight and relatively square. To increase durability, I use wood glue between the joints and just drive the pocket screws in. Now I'm adding the pieces on the top of the vanity box. I added 2 pieces, one on the front and other on the back, and between them is the sink. So now what's remaining is the 2 back pieces. For the vanity cabinets, you'll want to leave the center back open for plumbing work. For the one that goes on top, I cut it at a 45-degree angle. This angle is totally optional that I'll explain in a bit. The top and the bottom piece allows me to install it to the wall by driving the screws to the stud. The 45-degree angle enables a French cleat installation. So what you do is install another board to the wall with a 45-degree angle on the top facing up, and then you can hang your cabinets on top of that. But of course, when it comes to installation months later after I finished the vanity, I couldn't find the board that's supposed to go on the wall, so I ended up having it installed in the traditional way. When I install the pocket screws, I try to place the screws on the side that will not be seen and also position the screws so it's pointing to the majority of the board instead of the edge. And then I connect the 2 boards together and move to the bottom back piece. Once that is screwed securely, the cabinet box is done. I'm making 2 of the exact same vanity box. Later, I'll create a smaller drawer box to go between them. So after the box was built, I primed the surface with all-purpose primer. It's also a good idea to sand it after the primer has dried because any paint and primer can make the wood surface rough, so sand it before moving to the cabinet paint step. The cabinet paint I'm using here is from Benjamin Moore Advanced line. The color is called graphite because I want a dark, almost black color for them. After the first layer of paint, I did another round of sanding because it's always nice to have a very smooth surface for your cabinet. It will also make it look more professional. I didn't bother painting the inside because I kind of like the wood finish, and I just add poly to the inside later to finish it off. I built 2 small handy tools to prop the vanity box to the correct height. This is optional though. This setup can be used for installation, but more importantly, I want to measure the distance between the 2 cabinets so I can create my makeup drawer to the exact size to allow for a wall-to-wall installation. For making the drawer, I follow a very similar DIY process. When I was doing the cutting step earlier, I had already cut out all the pieces for this makeup drawer, leaving 1 to 2 inches as a buffer. So now I can just trim some of the horizontal pieces to the actual size I just measured, which is slightly less than 24 inches, and I just assembled it in a similar fashion. The main difference is I used 1 board for the back of the box because the whole cabinet box is only 5 inches tall and no plumbing behind it. Now it's time to make the inside drawer for the 2 large vanity cabinets and the small makeup vanity. So first, let's talk about the drawer that goes under the sink because it has to avoid the plumbings. I first measured where the plumbing is and I did a sketch for each side because the plumbing positions are not exactly the same. Then I did some calculations and planned out all the pieces and how they will fit together. For the material, I'm using 1/2 inch plywood. I ripped it to 5.5 width boards, which will be the height of my drawer, and cut each pieces to length. For the bottom of the drawers, I'm going to use 1/4 inch plywood, so I need to create a groove on the side panels to slide it in. This is also because I'm using undermount drawer slides, which requires a 1/2 inch gap on the bottom of the drawer so the slides can fit inside. I lowered my table saw blade and adjusted the ruler to account for the saw blade width as well. I don't have data on my table saw to create a wide cut line, so I just have to run it a few times to create a 1/4 inch wide groove, which I'm totally okay with. For efficiency, I like to cut all the pieces at the same time and then move to assembly. Because each drawer has so many pieces, I made sure to mark their length on the side to make my life a bit easier in the future. These are the pieces for 2 drawer boxes with a cutout for plumbing. Before attaching them together, I find it helpful to do a dry run first to put them together. Once everything looks good, I can start to apply wood glue and just brad nail them together. Clamp is a very helpful tool at this step. When I put the horizontal piece in, I realized I had to create 2 notches on the side for the 1/4 inch drawer bottom to sit, and then just tap them together using brad nails and glue. I want to make sure the cutout is square, so I was using some right angle tool to help out. This is me measuring the width of the front and the back to make sure they are the same, which means they are relatively square. And then I added the front piece in without really attaching them together and using the picture frame tool to hold everything together while the glue dries. I also make sure to support the back cutout part so it doesn't bounce together due to the pressure. After the glue has dried, I put the whole thing on top of a 1/4 inch plywood board to trace the shape for the bottom piece. I traced the shape from inside and then added the depth of the groove back. Then I cut the outer shape to size and use my jigsaw to cut the square-shaped cutout. Jigsaw can create a rough edge, so I recommend using painter's tape to tape the back side of your board. This will create a smooth line after you remove the tape. Now I can slide the bottom pieces in. It's a little tight, also because it's a non-regular shape, so I use a mallet to help me out. Once the bottom piece is in, I can finally close the drawer box by attaching the front piece in. If you're worried that the 1/4-inch drawer bottom piece is too thin, you can always support it by adding additional 1/2-inch plywood strips. Just make sure to stay out of the way from the drawer slides. The next drawer for me to build is for the makeup vanity. This is very straightforward, using the same method as I've introduced, but way simpler because it doesn't have any plumbing cutout. Also, I filled the nail holes for all the drawer boxes. Now it's time to install the drawers to the cabinet frame. Because the drawer slide I'm using is undermount, I position the track on the bottom corners and left a 3/4-inch gap for the drawer front that I'll install later, since I'm doing the inset cabinet style. And I secured the track with 2 screws on each side. I also created some cutout on the back of the drawer during drawer assembly step. This is for the track to sit on. Because the drawer track is attached to the back of the drawer, I place the drawer on the track and push it in all the way to figure out where the hook is attached, and drill a hole to accommodate that. This is specific to my drawer slide instructions. If you are using a different drawer slide, follow yours, but I thought it would be helpful in case you want to use something similar. Another attachment point for the slide is on the front with those orange devices. I positioned them at the front corners and used a self-centering drill bit for this, which is super helpful, and used the smaller screws to secure them. For undermount, it is really simple to attach the drawer to the back. All I do is place it on the track and push it in. For the makeup drawer, it is basically the same process. This orange device is the biggest selling point for this undermount slide because it allows me to adjust the drawer side to side, top to bottom really easily, which I love for this project. To remove the drawer, open it all the way and just press the orange device to the side away from the center and then lift it up. Although it is a little complicated to install for the first time, I got better after doing a few, and they open and close really smoothly. And this is what it looks like without any drawer fronts, which we'll make next. For the 3 narrow drawer fronts on the top, I used 3/4-inch poplar board. I bought them from Home Depot as 3.5-inch wide boards. I ripped them to the right width, aiming to leave a 1/16-inch gap on all 4 sides. Then I cut it to size with my miter saw. I also label them with pencil so I know which one goes where. This is also a good time to patch any imperfections. To install the drawer front, I position them and use poker cards to leave an even gap on all 4 sides. This also helps to hold the drawer front snugly and make sure it is not moving anywhere. Then I drill a pilot hole where I want the knobs to be. At this step, you want to drive a long screw in that pilot hole so you can attach the drawer front and the inside box together. I don't have the exact footage, just imagine the brass knob as a screw. Once I pull the drawer out, I can secure the 2 layers together by a couple screws from the inside. Now, is it easier to install the drawer front before the vanity top is there? Absolutely. However, I took long pauses during this project because life is crazy and I just have to work with what I have. Now I have my drawer front in and secured, I can do some final adjustment with this undermount slide orange device. I can use the dial to move it left to right and use the other switch to move it up and down, that you can see in this video. Next, I'm installing the tip-out tray right in front of the sink. This is a great way to add additional storage to a commonly not so utilized space. I bought a kit which comes with a pair of hardware and a long tray. When I was dry fitting the hardware into the opening, I realized I did not have enough vertical space for that. To solve this, I could either remove the horizontal board here, or I can attach the board with a drawer front to form a new piece. I want the top drawer portion from all 3 vanity boxes to have the same look, so I decided to go with the latter option. By the way, typically a tip-out tray is designed for an overlay style cabinet. To make sure the front won't be stuck in the frame when open and closed, I trimmed the top edge with a 7-degree angle. This is something I found to be very helpful in my own experience. I'm using some metal plates I bought from Home Depot to attach these two pieces together so I can leave a gap between them to mimic the natural gap between the drawer and the frame. I use the poker cards again and attach these two pieces together with screws on the back. At this point, I also mark where the tray will go so I can add screws in. This will be easier to do now than later. Back to the vanity box, I place the metal hardware in place, mark where they go based on the instructions, and attach them to the side of the cabinet frame. Then I clamp the front in place with poker cards in between and attach the hardware to the front, and it worked. So at this point, all the top drawer fronts are done. I'm moving to the bottom drawer fronts. I always like the shaker cabinet style, so that's what I'm creating. I went with a slightly narrower width of 1.5 inch as the outer frame because I think it looks more delicate. I'll use a 1/4 inch MDF board for the center panel. I use 1.5 inch wide poplar boards so I don't have to rip them to the right width, saving a step. Then I just cut them to the right length with my miter saw. Because the board is 3/4 inch thick, I set the blade to cut at 1/4 inch on each side and readjust the blade position to remove the middle piece. In a shaker style front, rail is a horizontal trim piece and it needs to be slotted into the stile, which is a vertical piece, just like tongue groove. So I removed the 1/4 inch extra bits on the top and bottom sides. When you cut the rail for a shaker door, be sure to account for the actual width for the tongue groove connection. For my case, I added 3/8 inch on each side. And if you're looking for a very detailed shaker door tutorial, I'll link a video I found really helpful in the description. So once I cut all the pieces, I did a dry fit with them. Then I use purely wood glue for the construction, so I don't have to patch any nail holes afterwards. And I just clamp them together and let it sit overnight for the glue to cure. Because I only have one pair of long clamps, I use a picture frame tool for the other cabinet front. The next day, I use any wood putty to smooth any joints and sand them smooth. Now they are ready to be painted. I should have used a primer, but I was really lazy to create any additional steps, so I just did 3 coats of paint, the same paint as the vanity box. And then I installed the drawer front to the drawer box and added some beautiful brass knobs. I'm using 2 knobs for each drawer because the drawer is relatively wide, and because shaker cabinet is concave in the middle, I added a piece of 1/4 inch plywood to bridge the gap between the drawer box and the front. This also enabled me to install the knobs on a thicker board, given my drawer box is not high enough to reach the knob hardware. However, I usually prefer a slightly shallow drawer box to save on materials. Now that the bottom drawers are done, the entire project's done. I'm so thrilled with how it turns out and how functional it is. I'm always a big fan of drawer cabinets compared to door cabinets because of how easy it is to reach things inside. I also love how much storage it adds to my small master bathroom. If I were to order this custom cabinet from a store, not only it will cost a lot, but it would also be hard to customize it to my specific needs. Oh man, this video is getting really long. I always strive to create videos that are concise and short enough to watch, but I don't want to miss all the details. So let me know what you think about the balance of this video of length and details. Since this project has many steps, I'll have the written instructions and build plan link in the description, and all the tools and materials I use for this project as well. And thank you so much for watching and staying till the end. If you enjoyed this video, give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.